Okay, so we have with us Professor Eitan Brisman. Let me promote you to a panelist. And Diego, please check if we have with us Yotam Ophir. Yotam Ophir is a fourth year student. He's doing clinical rotations right now, and he's happy to join and tell us about it. So when you see him, please promote him to a panelist as well.
Sure.
Okay. Professor Brisman, are you with us?
I am, yes. Video is not working yet, but otherwise I'm here.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. And today we will have students from Israel, from India, Sweden, Norway, Canada. So it's...
Brilliant. Shalom Kulam.
Thank you very much for being with us. Let me make you a host so that you can share your presentation. Okay, good. So you are a co-host now.
There we go.
Hi. Now we also see.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We still have a few minutes left and people are joining. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. We've got finally some beautiful weather here in Prague. Sun's shining. It's not as hot as in some places to the countries you mentioned. I'm sure Baritz, it's much hotter. But we're enjoying it for the moment.
Is it only hot from now? I mean, it's already June.
Usually so we're lucky here. We get the 4 proper seasons. We get a good cold winter, and it goes down to, usually it's around about 0, -4, -5. It sometimes goes down to -10, -15. But it's a dry cold. So as long as you're dressed up warm, there's no problems. I mean, I'm from London, and when it gets cold in London, even in the positives, in the +4 degrees, it's so cold because it's wet cold and it gets inside everywhere. But as we have a nice autumn, a nice spring, it's beautiful with the countryside here. But summer we get to about 30, 35 degrees maximum usually, only for a few weeks, but around 30 degrees for a good summer is nice.
Good. So I think that we can start. People are joining, but we can begin. If you can present yourself and your presentation, you're the co-host now.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So my name's Eitan Brisman. I am the Vice Dean for International Studies here at Charles University's first Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry. As you can probably hear by my accent, I'm not Czech, I'm English. But many years ago, when I had some hair, I was a student here myself. I studied medicine here before going on to my career as a doctor in the UK. I stupidly fell in love with a speciality of surgery called maxillofacial surgery, or maxillofacial surgery, head, neck and face surgery, which meant that in the UK, it's one of these professions, specialties of medicine, you have to be dual qualified as both a doctor and, because the mouth is such a large percentage of the area that we work in, as a dentist as well. So I then studied dentistry at King's College in London and carried on my career in the UK until a few years ago when I came back to Prague. They persuaded me to come back here. And in October this year, they made me the Vice Dean here to look after, hopefully, you guys. So I'm going to bore you with a quick presentation just to show you a few things. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. I have a very strict rule, though. My strict rule is all questions are good questions. All questions are good questions. If you have a question, the only thing you need to do is be brave enough to ask it, because I guarantee you there is at least a dozen other people thinking exactly the same question, but a little bit too afraid, too shy to ask it. There's no such thing as silly questions. I want to answer everything. I want to hear everything. The fact that you answer questions means you're interested. That's great. And you're listening. All right, let me share my screen. So a little bit about me and Charles University, first faculty, that's what you really want to hear. You don't hear about me, about the university. So Charles University, first faculty of medicine. Where are we? Where is Czech Republic? Where is Prague? So if you were to put a pin in the absolute epicenter of Europe, then Czech Republic or Prague is in that center. It's right there. It's the old Bohemia. Bohemia is one of the parts of Czech Republic, Bohemia, Moravia. It's a great city, it's a great country, the very center of Europe. And as we were discussing before, it has all 4 climates. So in the winter, skiing in the mountains here is about an hour's drive to the north of Prague, or the Alps to the south, in the Austrian or the German Alps. We'll go to some of the Italian Alps, is about 2-3 hours down to the south. It's a mostly atheist country, and religion is not a big thing here. In the north, in Poland, it's a very big thing. It's a very Catholic country. Here in Czech Republic, religion is not an issue. It's not a care. Everyone does their own thing. It's Bohemia. It's an open country. It's an open society, open-minded. In the recent rankings, Prague Czech Republic was rated to be the 16th happiest place to live. The 8th safest city in the world, safest country in the world, the 6th safest city in the world. And I must say, coming from London, there are areas in London where I, having grown up there, I would not go out during the daytime, let alone at night. But in Prague, the beauty is that whether it's day, night, wherever in the city, as a man, or even my wife, my children, my daughters, to go about in the streets by themselves, not a problem. It's not a concern. It's very, very safe here. About the faculty itself. So Charles University has now 17 faculties, but originally there were only 4. Medicine, law, theology, and something else which I've forgotten about. We'll come back to that, we'll ignore that bit. 4 original faculties. We are one of the 4 founding faculties. So our medical school dates back to 1348. It's one of the oldest medical schools in the world. It is the oldest in Central Europe. And our ranking, our international ranking, keeps us in the top 1% of all medical schools around the globe. With that, we have recognition. We have global recognition of our education, both our medical and dental degrees. So that if you want to work in the UK, even now after Brexit, that wherever you're from in the world, they recognize the UK, the General Medical Council, GMC and GDC, the General Dental Council in the UK, recognize the quality of our education, which means that it doesn't matter where you're from, you will automatically get full registration for the GMC and GDC without having to do any extra exams like the PLAB exam or the ORE exam for dentistry. In the US, we are recognized by all 50 states in the US. We have accreditation even in California, which we're in one of only 20 medical schools outside of America to have California state accreditation. We have full US federal loan scheme accreditation, which means anyone with a US passport can get the full loans for studying with us, which covers tuition fees and living costs. And we also have one of very few medical schools to have qualification for the GI Bill. I don't really know of many others or any others outside the US that have this, which means for military veterans in America, they get full funding, not just loans, but they get full scholarship to study with us in our school. We have similar relationships with Germany. There's German states that sponsor their students or their nationals, or German students, to come study. They pay all 6 years of their tuition to study with us. Our idea is not only to make you the best doctor or dentist, but it's to make you internationally acceptable best doctor. Wherever you want to go in the world, your degree, your education will be recognized and seen as valid. So what does the course entail? It's based on a classic traditional curriculum. We have our preclinical years and our clinical years. So for medicine, we have 3 years of predominantly preclinical education and 3 years of predominantly clinical education. And dentistry is about 2 years of preclinical and 3 years of clinical. We have on site the largest hospital in the country, the the General Teaching Hospital. And we have a number of other hospitals around Prague and even around the Czech Republic that our students can go to and allocated to during their education. Not only that, we have a state-of-the-art simulation center, which is brand new and in fact about to be massively enlarged to enable simulation training, which is the thing now for training doctors and dentists around the world. But we also promote you to do some of your rotations abroad. And why this is important, I'm going to go back to what I said before about being the best international doctors. We've seen, to be a good doctor, what does it take to be a good doctor? You've got to have the knowledge. You've got to have the best, preclinical, theoretical training. And you've got to have the practical skills. You've got to have good clinical training. But that's not everything. And in fact, the last year and a half, we've really seen why that is true, because COVID has shown us that one disease, the same virus across the globe has had drastically different effects on different populations because of the way that those populations handled the disease, because each different healthcare system deals with the disease differently. So for me and for us, it's really important that you not only learn the theoretical knowledge and you learn the practical skills, but you also learn the method which the healthcare system where you want to work when you graduate, you need to learn how they do it, because each country, each health system does it slightly differently. The NHS in the UK does it totally differently to the Czech Republic here. We do it totally different here to it does in the States or to Israel. So it's really important that we enable you to have rotations abroad in the countries that you want to go to work in. I'm going to we mentioned about the USMLE training in this slide. We integrate part of our training with USMLE exams or curriculum. And just to give you an idea of the success that we get, the Caribbean medical schools for their US students, they get 60, 70, 80% success rate on USMLE. This year, our results were in part 1 of USMLE, 100% pass. Part 2, 100% pass. Part 3, 100% pass. And 100% of our students that apply for residency in the States got their residency. That's our success rate. So, ability to study elsewhere. We have some high-level relationships with various hospitals around the world. We have some various universities around the world. We do Erasmus. I don't know if you guys know what Erasmus is, but it's the ability for transport of students predominantly around Europe, but also around the world. It enables free travel for students to get part of their education elsewhere. And we actually have the largest number of incoming students to study here at Prague out of any member of Erasmus around the whole of Europe. The course, the whole thing's taught in English. All 6 years for medicine, all 5 years for dentistry, all taught in English. We've always taught in 2 languages. It's something we've always done. In 673 years, we've always taught. Originally Latin, under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, we had German and Czech, and now since the fall of communism, 30 years for English and Czech. Medicine, we have about 160 places per year, and you get an MD at the end of it. And dentistry, it's an MDDR or DDS, which in English would be BDS, Bachelor of Dental Surgery, or America DDS is what you get. There's about 30 to 40 places available for dentistry. I think actually next year it's only 30 places available. How does the system work? 2 semesters rather than 3 terms. It's 2 semesters. And between each semester, there is an exam period. I'll come into that a little bit later on. We also have the standard state holidays. And the holidays really depend upon you, because our way of teaching you is not just to teach you to be a doctor or a dentist. University life is not just about education in a specific field. University is about life education. So we, in our training and what we do for you, we want to train you to be competent, to be successful with whatever you do for the rest of your life, wherever you go. So the examination system is slightly different to how most of you are used to. And for me in the UK, growing up, everything was written multiple choice or essay answers. And even when I studied dentistry at King's College, which is supposedly the #1 dental school in the world, we had short answers and long answers and essays and things like that. I've been a surgeon for 17 years. I can tell you, never once has any patient ever come to me and said, Dr. Brisman, could you write me an essay on my diagnosis? Just a short, 2 sides, that's fine, on my diagnosis and treatment plan. It's never happened. But every patient, every single patient examines me verbally. It could be every 15 minutes if I've got an outpatient clinic, different patient, different exam, different questions. They examine me verbally. It's not necessarily a fair exam. There might be a crowd there. I might have their family members with them, my nursing staff, some junior doctors, some medical students, and they might not just ask me about the specific problem that they have with the diagnosis. They might ask me about a range of other things. So I need to be ready and prepared for that. And we in the examination system here prepare you for that. Because every single exam that we have culminates with an oral exam, a viva exam. And that really gets you ready for real life. It gets you ready for interviews, how to talk in interviews, and it gets you ready for how to behave and how to act in clinical situations. The other thing is that you get to choose within reason when you take your exams. This is a huge benefit that we sometimes forget. In the UK, as in most universities around the world, your exam dates are set in stone. You will be doing this exam on that day. You either turn up or it's a fail. If you don't turn up, you failed. If you turn up, you can take it and pass. You don't get to choose when you take it. We believe in treating you as adults. And that part of that is knowing how to study and being able to control your time management and study management. So with that, we, within the exam period, which I've got on this slide in red, a number of dates are created for the students to sit their exams. The students sign up for, they choose the dates, whichever they want to sign for the exams. And because we know the exams are not easy, they're not easy. And because we know that a number of students, a large number may not pass on the first time, each student has for each exam 3 attempts, at least 3 attempts for each exam. So if you're a good student, and back in my day, I was a good student, I would study throughout the year. And then I would take the very first exam day, and sometimes there'd be what we call preterm exams. If you're a good student, that before the exam period actually started, there might be 1 term available for some students. So that way I would take the exams early as possible, ace them, and then I'd have the whole month of exam period for holidays. Go back home, have a holiday. In fact, usually what I do is I used to work as a nurse at Children's Hospital, Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in the UK. But you can do whatever you want in that time period. There is the opportunity to do research. And I say there is the opportunity. I strongly recommend that you all do research, and we actively encourage our students. In fact, we have a conference that's created for our students, an international conference where our students will present their research on the international stage, which was a couple of weeks ago to great success. And if you do research, you can also do a PhD. So you can get MD, PhD. And we have more than 20 programs of PhD, all again in English, taught in English. And a picture of the new Albertov complex was about to be built in our campus. We actually have the top research centre research output in the country, and one of the top in Europe as a whole, as of recent rankings. So let's talk about how you get in to be one of our students. 2 things, exam and interview. We have to have a written exam because we have students from all over the world, and we have to have a leveler to say that the level of knowledge when you're starting is about equal, about even, because each different country has different education systems. So we need to have some level to say this is actually the quality standard we need to begin with. And then we have the interview. So the exam is based on 3 things: biology, chemistry, physics. Physics, not maths, physics. Why physics, not maths? Because physics is the practical application of mathematics. And physics is what you need to know for medicine, because physics is vital for everything. You have to understand physics, understands how X-rays work, understands how properties of medications work and the pharmacological aspect of it, which goes along with the chemistry and the biology. So biology, chemistry, and physics. Multiple choice, positively marked. Those who are successful will be invited to interview. And the interview is an MMI format, multiple mini interview format, where you'll be going to different stations with different interviewers who don't know your scores or don't know anything else you've done, and you'll be assessed on different things. Dr. Cohen's team are well aware of all of this, and they are experts in training you guys for this, and they will go through all this stuff with you closer to the time. The last thing that we ask for is a personal statement. This is a maximum one side of A4, 400 words approximately, chance for you to sell yourself, to tell us, why do you want to study medicine or dentistry? Why do you want to study in Prague in our faculty? Why have you chosen our faculty? What do you know about it? That we know that you really want to study with us. What great things about you? Tell us about those gold medals you won in the Olympics and everything else. And tell us what experience you have about medicine and dentistry. So we know that you know what you're getting into when you come and study with us. There is, of course, a tuition fee. It's going to be 400,000 Czech crowns per year. Unless you are one of those lucky students who's either from the States or from Germany that gets the tuition fee paid for by scholarship from there. We do offer some scholarships for those high achieving students, but not 100% scholarships like you can get from US federal loans or from Germany at the moment. What else is important is medicine is difficult. Dentistry is difficult. These are some of the hardest subjects anybody could study. So there's a very good saying, work hard, play harder. If you don't relax, if you don't go out and do activities and socialize, and do other things, and if any parents are listening, please close your ears, because beer is cheaper than water in Czech Republic, and I'm not joking. If you don't go out and relax, you won't be able to concentrate on your studies. You'll get burnt out on the studies. So there's a really good active student union called MedSoc. They do everything from looking after you from day one, or even before you join. They'll have Freshers Week, and they have all these societies, all these different clubs and sports and parties and things that they arrange. They also do a lot for education, arranging study groups. They have tutor groups. When you join, you're given a buddy from a higher year who'll be there to look after you should you have any questions or any problems. And you must go out and enjoy, you're right in the center of Europe. You are so able to go and visit every other country when there's no COVID, quickly, easily, either short drive, short train ride, short flight, to go anywhere and everywhere. Accommodation is guaranteed for all 6 years in our university dorms. The campus that we have, it is not a enclosed campus for just the faculty. We have what's called the city campus. So the faculty buildings are right in the very center of Prague, the tourist center of Prague. And that's where the hospital is, that's where the theoretical departments are. There's no halls of residence there. The halls of residence are towards the outskirts, spread around the city. And they're mixed throughout the university. So you get other students from all over the world and from all over Czech Republic studying all sorts of different specialties or subjects, staying in the halls. Many of our students, I'll use myself, we'll ask Jotam was one of our fantastic students, I think in the 4th year, who's joined us. Many of our students decide to move to the center of Prague. I did in I think it was my 1st year, 6 months into my 1st year, because the anatomy dissections started at 7:30 in the morning and on a Friday morning. And I was not a morning person in those days. And it meant about, 45 minutes public transport ride, which meant for me getting up at what should be an illegal hour early in the morning. So I moved to a flat shed, about 5 minutes walk from the faculty, right on the river in the very center of Prague. And you know what, it's not much more expensive than you're paying for halls. And you get to live in a really nice life with your friends right in the epicenter of Prague. But I think I'll let Jotam talk more about that. The one last thing I want to say is that we also have a student counsellor who is not Czech. They are foreign. She is the nicest lady you ever met. And she's there for you, because coming away from home, leaving your standard support structures can be difficult. And she's there for you to meet with you at any time and talk with you about anything, whether it's problems with studies, whether it's a bad breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend. She's trained in study skills, she's trained in nutrition skills, she's not a doctor. And the contract that we created, in the position I put her in, was specific, that everything and anything you say to her stays between you and her, and will never, I've made it impossible for it to come back to the faculty. So you can talk to her with absolute confidence that anything that goes on between you, whatever you say, will never come back to the faculty. We'll never have any problems with your educational career with us. Right, that's enough of me going on about things. I think I'll hand back over to Moshe, and I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Yotam, are you with us?
Yes.
Can we see you?
Just a moment. It says I can't start the video because the host has stopped it.
Wait. Let me
No
check.
problem.
It's always nicer to see you. Okay, now you can.
See? Yes. Perfect. Hello.
Hi, Yotam.
Hey, Dr. Brisman, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm just finishing my fourth year rotations in Israel, which has been
Fantastic.
a tremendous experience. Yeah.
Yotam, thank you very much for joining us. We
Problem,
have students from many places in the world with us. Many of them are from Israel. And if you can please present yourself to the students, tell them about your route, about your preclinical years, about your experiences in Prague, and also about the clinical rotations that you're doing in Israel. Because I'm always emphasizing to the students that this is a very, very important opportunity. For my opinion, doing the clinical part, receiving the clinical education of your medical studies is very important, but it's always good to hear it also from a student. So please, Yotam.
So like most of you, I was wondering about studying medicine, and if you're either from Scandinavia or Israel or Germany, getting into med school is a pretty long route. In Israel, at least, we have to spend about 2 to 3 years of improving our grades, and this means that you'll eventually start med school around the age of 25, 26. So I was kind of thinking my steps of how should I approach this in a more reasonable manner, and I came across Dr. Cohen's like preclinical studies, which was an amazing course and a very good choice for me. And I started medicine in Charleston First Faculty 4 years ago. And I moved to Prague without ever visiting Prague before, which was a very interesting surprise because I only heard about it from friends who occasionally went there. And then I moved to this marvelous city who is like, it's my second home for every point and purpose. I'm finishing my clinical rotations here and I'm flying back to Prague because I have my apartment there and stuff, and I miss it so much. So there's like a lot of things which are calling you back there. And my journey, I think, is like a very similar one to the lot of other Israeli, Scandinavian, German students who come to First Faculty. We come a bit older. I started med school when I was 23, and we kind of get thrown in the water. So Dr. Brisman spoke heavily about the preclinical years and clinical years, and I have to say that in Israel, for example, we have a lot of foreign medical students from other countries besides Prague who are working in the Israeli health system. And you can definitely tell which student studied in a very well-established facility who has been demanding from that student for the course of 6 years to work extremely hard, and which one hasn't, because the level is not the same. And when you have like such a huge system which is incorporating so many students from different places, like as already graduates, doctors, you see the differences. And I have to say, in all honesty, that it might sound a bit scary, but the first 3 years are very challenging. Like, it's not a walk in the park, and it shouldn't be, which is something you have to remember for yourselves, because you go to study medicine for many, many different reasons. You know, some people do it for their family's sake. Some people do it because they think they want to be a doctor, because they have some good connection with people. There are a billion reasons, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of responsibility about other people's lives. And that's like a really important thing to keep in mind. And you don't want to cut yourself slack. You don't want to work less hard just so you can get the V on your exam and say, okay, I passed, it's fine. You want your faculty to challenge you. You want it to teach you as hard as you can, to push you to the limit, which sometimes can be daunting, but in truth is only working for your benefit. And I can see that when I'm discussing material with Israeli medical students who are studying in Israel, and I see that we are on the same level of material and that the difference is almost non-existing. And I know for a fact that my colleagues from different universities throughout Europe cannot say the same. So there's something very special about first fac because you are going to work extremely hard. And sometimes, or some days, or like pre-exam days, you're going to ask yourself if you've made the right decision of coming here, because you're going to be crying hysterically about your anatomy exam and how on earth are you going to do all that? But then you do it. And this builds you such amazing confidence in yourself and your ability to overcome these challenges. And they will be very big challenges. And this kind of leads you to the clinical years with like a very good base. So now I saw that someone was asking something about the clinical rotations in Israel. I will address that later, if that's okay. But I will speak about them right now because I'm currently finishing them in a week and a half. I have to say that the preclinical preparations that we received in Charles is superb. Like we came to the clinical rounds and almost every single department was very, they were considering us to be like, wow, how do you know all those things? And like, it's very surprising that you know those things. Or Israeli med students only do this rotation for 1 week and we don't even get to teach them all that. So you have to understand that when you're going to do your clinical rounds, even if you're doing them in Germany or in Israel, in Norway or other places or in the US, you're gonna come there very well prepared. And the clinical rotations in Israel are an amazing experience. Obviously, it's a bit more relevant to Israeli medical students, but I have to say that if you are now thinking about which faculty you should choose, where you want to study next year, you have to consider that. That's a huge advancement that you're going to have over your peers and colleagues from other universities who have never, like, they would stay in Europe for 6 years, which is fine because it's an amazing experience, but they wouldn't know how the system works. So if you study in the UK and you can go back to the UK to do clinical rotations, you have to do that. And because Charles allows that, and First Faculty in specifically allows that, this is like an opportunity you cannot miss, no matter where you are. Where you're from in the world. So the fact that Dr. Brisman is now enriching the amount of weeks that we can do per year is like, that's a life-changing opportunity for us. So instead of like, until now I could do only like 1 semester, but now I can do a whole year in Israel. That's life-changing. That means that I'm gonna have as equal good of like medical training as my peers who are Israeli graduates.
Yotam, sorry to interrupt. Just on that note, I'm pushing to be not just a whole year, but possibly more, possibly all your clinical studies.
No, yeah, that was, I'm sorry, that was what I was referring to, like the entire year of every clinical year. And would you like me to talk about like the living in Prague generally?
Yes, yeah. But maybe we can take a question from.
Oh yeah, sure.
How do you feel that the physicians are treating you during the clinical rotations? Do you feel that they see you equal to the medical students who study in Israel?
Definitely. And we have really spoken about it several times with different departments. We are getting the exact same treatment, the same lectures, the same clinical exposure. If anything, they're a bit easier on us. They say like, this is something that is mandatory for Israeli medical students, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But in terms of training, we receive the exact same lectures from the same professors, from the same facilities. So we don't even feel the difference because in truth, they're like, they don't really care who they're teaching. They're teaching medical students and they understand that they're investing this in future Israeli doctors. So for them, it doesn't matter that we are from Prague. If anything, they just become more acquainted with First Faculty. And this really improves the reputation of the faculty in Israel, for example.
Thank you. And Yotam, how does it work?
Sorry.
Yotam, how does it work? You come in the morning to the hospital. What happens then? What do you do during the clinical rotation?
So it obviously depends from department to department. For example, we just finished 4 weeks in general surgery, and then we have to get to the hospital every morning at 7 a.m. and sit for 1 hour of like morning lectures or morning rounds. And then, for example, general surgery work in the supermarket form. So if you really like to go to clinics, you can go to clinics. If you really like to go for surgeries, you can spend your entire day in surgeries. I found it very interesting to go to breast cancer surgery. So I spent almost like 2 weeks of my time there really only focusing on breast. So I went to the breast clinic and I sat with the pathologist and with the oncologist and radiologist and the general surgeons. We were doing like all these multidisciplinary approaches meetings, and it was fascinating. So you can have that where the department is like very, very free and allows you to choose what it is that interests you. And for example, in orthopedics, we had a very different experience. We had a very well-constructed schedule. So every day from 8 until I think it was 10:30, we had a lecture, then a short break, then another lecture, then lunch, then clinical rounds. Infectious diseases, the same concept. We had from 9 until 12 very important lectures, and then we saw patients. And sometimes if there was a really interesting patient, so we switched places. So first there was the rounds, and then there was the lectures. So it really depends based on the department, but generally there's always a guiding hand. There's either like a very fixed schedule, or there's like the options that you can do are as follows, and then you can choose. So you're not going to come there and like stare at the wall. So they're always going to guide you and tell you how this can improve you, or why you should do this and why you should do that. And yeah, like for example, next week I'm studying ophthalmology, and we already have our schedule. We have like our small WhatsApp group with our physician who's in charge of us, and we already have a schedule. And I know for a fact that Sunday morning, 8 a.m. we have a lecture until 10, and then I go and I join I go for eye surgery from 10 until 1, for example. So the schedule is very well constructed. Again, you understand what I mean, that sometimes it can be a bit more meticulous, but sometimes it can be more free, but you are not going to come there and like look around and ask who can teach me, because they're very much aware that we're coming and they're preparing it in advance. And this just shows that they really don't care that we're from Prague. Doesn't matter. We're med students for them, and they're treating us the same as they would treat the Israeli students.
Thank you. Yotam, I know that some of your colleagues who are also our students decided to do the clinical rotations in Prague. Why do you think it's important to do the clinical rotation in your home country? What's the most important benefit of it?
So obviously, you get to practice medicine in your native tongue. I would say that I'm relatively good at Czech compared to a lot of my colleagues, because I was given a language to learn and I took the advantage of it, and I was like, okay, I'll study it. And I'm still not very comfortable with it. So I'll be able to take like a proper medical history in Czech and like a very throughout thought experiment and all that. So when you go back to your home country and you suddenly practice medicine in your native tongue, German, English, and Norwegian, and so forth, there is like this huge change in thinking. You suddenly, you understand a bit better. It's not that studying in English is bad. On the contrary, I think sometimes it's even harder to translate the English terms to Hebrew. And I'm sure that the same can be said for basically any other language that doesn't use the classic Latin phrases. But suddenly when you do this change of thought, then it's amazing, because things very click in your own language, and it really develops your clinical thinking in another language, which is something you have to keep in mind. You're studying medicine in English, and if that's not your home language, when you go back to your home countries, to your home hospitals, you might like have this difficulty of like kind of bringing the knowledge back together. So the more you do this and the more you're exposed to medicine in your native tongue, the better you will be at this. So that's the first thing I would like to say. The second thing I would like to say is obviously getting to know the system. So we are like foreign medical students in Prague. I guess the majority of the international medical students don't stay in Prague. So we are not very well acquainted with like the local systems, or we don't invest our time of becoming like very well acquainted with the politics and how the medical system in Prague works and the insurance and stuff like that. But then you go back to your home country and you have to understand all of that. You have to understand the dynamics between the hospitals and like the community medical associated facilities, and you have to understand how they're working. So you can't just walk into a hospital in Israel and say, treat me, okay? You have to have certain, you have to have like the proper insurance, and you have to have the proper memberships, and like those things kind of bring it down to earth. That's like something which is very, you think it's trivial, but you really have to be exposed to it. And of course, to the entire system of how the interns work, and how the professionals work, and how the professors work, and how the department itself, what is the day-to-day of a doctor in Israel? So let's think about that. We're medical students and we are not exposed to the day-to-day, right? We go to the hospital from, let's say for Prague, from 8 to 1, for in Israel from 8 to 4, and so forth, but you don't really get to experience the entire, I'm a working physician in a hospital now. And when you go back to your home country and you see those physicians, you can better understand if this is something that you want. So the importance of this is tremendous. Like I know for a fact that I am not interested in general surgery. So I've been to those 4 weeks. They were very teaching, but I don't see myself doing that. And I wouldn't be able to know that unless I would have done, you know, the rotations. So also for your future decisions based on which type of specialty you would like to do, you have to have proper exposure in your home country for that, because that's where you're going to go back.
There is one more, if I can, there is one more advantage. I could not agree more with your term. I think your term is absolutely, everything you said is absolutely perfect. It's exactly my vision for the education for our students. And the one other advantage I would say is English is the international language, especially in medicine. So the high impact publications in the journals are all in English. If you want to learn anything in research and science, it's all published in English. So by having at least your basic education performed in English, and you've studied English, you will never struggle to understand or to interact or to cooperate wherever you go in the world in English, to read the papers, to write your own papers. But then I think exactly as your Tam said, to do your clinical rotations in your native tongue. And I experienced it as well myself, you know, coming here and then going back to the UK. Even as a consultant in the UK, as a boss in the UK, I see that the knowledge of our students here from Prague is far better than my UK students. And I'm a teacher lecturer at UCL, you know, a top 10 medical school in the world. But the knowledge and the level from Prague, from Charles University's First Faculty of Medicine, is far greater than our UK students have. But the UK students who have been doing the UK rotations the whole time, of course, they're exactly as your Tam described, their aptitude for the healthcare system to know what is where and where is what was much better. And that's why we're enabling not just what it was 12 weeks or anything else, and not just a semester, but I want it to be that you can do your clinical rotations in your country, because exactly like your Tam was describing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yotam, some of our listeners today, some of them are applying to Charles. They have an entrance exam in about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And some of them are already got accepted, and they're going to study in the first year. And many of them ask me, and they approach me and they say that it is known that the first 2 preclinical years are very difficult. Yotam, can you elaborate on this a bit? How difficult is it, and what is your tip or tips for them to pass these years?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. I have to say that the difficulty itself can be branched out, and I don't want to go into too many details, but you have to understand that when you are relocating, and if that's the first time you're going to relocate from one country to another, you're going to have difficulties which are not related to the faculty or to, they're just life difficulties. You're far away from home, you know, with your mom and your friends, you don't have the support that you used to have. Sometimes you're not going to feel well and stuff like that. And everything kind of stresses you out. So I would say that the first half year or first year is difficult, not because uni is very demanding. Obviously it is, but that's not the main issue. The issue is that you relocated and you have to understand it about yourself. Give yourself some slack and help yourself, you know, for your mental health. You are relocating. That includes with a lot of new types of stresses which you've never been exposed to. And keep that in mind. You're going to have like these relocation difficulties. You have to address them. You have to talk about them, be together with your friends and have like really good circles. I found that to be extremely helpful. So the Israelis were like really getting together. And I think the same was said for the Germans and the others. And it really helps. Like you have to develop your own support circles because you're going to be depleted of what the ones you had back home. So I think that's like one very important difficulty, which can be branched out forever. So I'm not going to go onto that. But in terms of med school, I think the main difficulty is that most of us, like most of the students in Charles finished high school and then immediately started studying med school, like 1 year after, 2 years after. Like Israelis and Germans and Norwegians can take a bit longer, but you are very well accustomed that, you know, you study your A levels and stuff like that, and you are really being fed what you need to study. Everything is very clear, and you have like a very proper guidance. And part of the thing about First Fac is that I'm not saying that they're denying it on purpose, but you have to understand that the years are clinical, the preclinical years are difficult on purpose. You have to be able to study those things on your own. This means that you're going to have classes and you're going to have lectures, but nobody is going to sit and why haven't you submitted this paper, or why haven't you read on this chapter? No one is going to do that. And if you are not going to do that, then sadly you're going to fail because you're not studying properly. So one of the biggest difficulties in first and second year, so that's mostly for first year, because second year you already get the game, but is suddenly studying solo or studying like in a very high demand and high energy consuming material, and you can easily get lost. Easily you can get lost. You can get overwhelmed by the lectures and by their intensity, and you're running from uni back home to study, and you feel like you've been studying all day, and then you go to another lecture and you're not prepared for that lecture because you've been studying all the material from the previous lecture, and all of this can be daunting and it can be like frightening. So in order to tackle that, I would suggest what Moshe suggested to us when we were in this preclinical year, which I think is an amazing tip, that you have to study in pairs. You have to find someone who's really good for you, like you're good friends from before, or like in my case, I like made my best friend Adam, which is like a very good acquaintance also of Dr. Grisman. We met on the last day of our preclinical years, and like, oh, we have a really good match, so let's do this. And we've been studying together for 4 years. So that's mean that every exam, every challenge that we face, we do this together. And there's something amazing when you bounce those things off. And Dr. Brisman spoke earlier about like the oral examinations, which can also be quite frightening to students. So imagine how good it would be when you're doing the exact same thing with your friends. So it's not an examiner now, but you're going to go through the entire material that you want to say to the examiner, and your friend is going to play the examiner. So going to ask you a question, is going to make it difficult for you. And then you find out together, where do you lack the information, where he or she lacks the information. So this synergism is amazing. So one of the best things you have to do when you start med school in first fac is get like a study buddy. I cannot exaggerate this enough. Do not study alone. The studying alone is not only difficult, but mentally it's breaking. Don't do that. So you really have to do that in order to get stuff done. And the last thing I would like to say in terms of how to deal with the difficulties is time management. That's everything, really. I have like this nice little trick that at the end of each day, I sit down on my computer and I write like the simplest of sticky notes of my laptop, and I write my schedule for the following day. Every hour, 8 to 10, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and I write every single time schedule. What am I doing in that time frame? Am I studying anatomy? Am I studying histology? Am I going on a workout? Am I meeting friends? Am I meeting my partner? All those things together have to be written down, so you're not like lost in space. So if you know you have a lecture from 8 to 12, don't think that you're going to wake up and study different things because you're going to go to the lecture, obviously. And it sounds very trivial, but once you write those things down and make a habit out of it, that's like one of the best tips I like to give to first years. Make a habit out of it. Every the end of each day, write the following day's schedule. This would really help you. And I think that's like on the tip of the tongue, like the 3 most important things I would like to say about like the coping with the difficulties of first year.
I just sorry to chime in. Yotam is right on point again. And as I say to the students, and I'll say to you as well, within the faculty grading system, the examination system, we don't have a rule about how many top grades. So our grading system for exams are 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is the best, 4 is fail. So 1 is excellent, 2 very good, 3 is good, 4 is fail. There's nowhere where it's written we have to only give X number of 1s, Y number of 2s, Z number of 3s, and the rest we must fail. My aim, what we want is to give you all 1s, to give you all excellence. If you've got the knowledge, if you've got the abilities, we can give you all excellence and you can graduate with a degree of honours, the red degree, diploma, honours degree. So it's up to you about how you study and how, I think as your time said, it's time management, studying regularly throughout the year, and studying in groups, because that is really most vital. I think your time, again, was right on point. It's not only for your mental state, but when you vocalize some knowledge and you bounce off of someone, you learn it so much better. And it's really great practice for the exams, because that's what you'll be doing. You'll be discussing openly these exams. So we want you to excel. The competition starts when you start applying for jobs. And that's what we also want to help you in doing various other activities to be able to give you the best opportunity for getting jobs upon graduation. And that's where we have, we have an annual job fair where we have hospitals from all over the world that will come to our faculty and offer jobs, offer clinical rotations directly to our students. And in fact, of our final year students, I think more than 70% of the students actually have a job before they've graduated, a job waiting for them upon graduation. I noticed a question before about whether you can do rotations in more than one hospital in 1 year. So in Prague, you'll be rotated amongst different hospitals. And if you want to rotate abroad, as long as it's an affiliated hospital that we recognize, then I don't mind if you want to do one rotation in one hospital, another rotation in another hospital, as long as it's all, as long as you cover our curriculum, you cover our syllabus, you fulfill our logbook, and you pass our exams at a recognized hospital that we can check as bona fide done, I want you to gain the most experience, the best experience. In England, the postgraduate education system is a system of rotations that you rotate every few months to different hospitals, different departments, different hospitals. And the idea behind that is you get to see the good things and the bad things. It can be the same specialty, and you get to see different ways of doing it. And then you decide what you liked and what you didn't like for how you want to be the best doctor for going forward. So I'm quite happy if you want to do different rotations in different hospitals, as long as they are affiliated with us, we have a contract with them, they're recognized, as long as you fulfill our curriculum and criteria, then I will support you every step of the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yotam, one more very important question, which is related to the previous one. If you can speak about numbers, how many of your friends made it to the third year? How many dropped out? You don't have to be precise, but I would like to give the students an idea, because I always tell them the majority pass, especially within, if we speak about Israelis, but not only, the majority pass. If you study well, you will pass. So Yotam, maybe you can elaborate on this as well.
So I think I have my numbers relatively well, but I can just take the Israeli group and then we can deduce from this about the whole year. I think we started something around 33 Israelis, and now we're currently 25, out of which 5 of these students transferred willingly to a different faculty in Israel. So overall, in the past 4 years, something like 3 or 4 students, so like the very, very small percentage. I can obviously also attend to students who I remember they were with me in first year and I've never seen them again after first year. And like these were mostly the kind of, you'll excuse my language, kids that came to Prague. And it was the first time that they were living abroad, and everything was shiny and pretty and new, and like partying and going on the river and drinking and like really having a blast, which you should, like as Professor Brisman said, like work hard, play harder. You should definitely have mental breaks, but this cannot become your day-to-day. And the majority of the students who are no longer with us today studying at First Fac are those who did exactly that. They would not study, they would postpone, they would procrastinate, and instead of that, they would just go out and party and like they would have a good time, and that's fine. But just don't do that when you're trying to finish med school, because they don't coincide at the same time. You literally cannot go out every day on the weekend, get, again, excuse me, language, shit-faced over the weekend from alcohol and stuff like that, and then wake up at 2 p.m. and not study until 4, and then study for 2 hours and then go out again. If you catch my drift, like you can't do those things. You have to have like a very well-defined, you have to set your own borders. So you can definitely, and you should go out, you should have dinner with friends, and you should like go on a pub and drink together and like talk and like breeze it off. You have to do this. You have to let the emotional stress like de-accelerate, but this cannot be your day-to-day. So if it will become, then sadly you will probably not succeed. But basically, if you sit and study, if you sit down your ass and you just study, you should be fine because you're working hard. Then like it's not gonna pass by you, like you're working for this. So I think that's the majority of cases of people who are no longer studying with us.
Professor Brisman, do you agree with what we said, that if you are serious and you study, there is no reason for you not to pass your exams?
Absolutely. The greatest reason for failure, the greatest number of students that fail is because they don't actually attend the exam. And we can't pass you if you don't actually attend the exam. I mean, even yesterday I had, I think it was 20-something slots for exams, and 18 students just cancelled last minute. So what can I do? I can't pass them, I can't examine them. If I can't examine you, I can't pass you. So come along, try it out. You've got 3 attempts. Study. I think, again, like your Yotam said, it's important to be able to get that balance. And that's what we want to educate you here. We're not here to spoon feed you. We're not going to give you every bit of information on a spoon and say, here, you just swallow that and you're done. That's how your high school education was. Because in life, when you graduate, when you're working as a clinician, you're not going to have all the information ready there available on a spoon to get it. You've got to go and search for it, find it out. So we need to train you in how to research, how to find out the information. So we're not going to spoon feed you. We're going to treat you like adults, and we're going to train you to go and research and find that information. We want to train you, educate you in how to educate yourselves. And of course, we'll guide you along that route. So one thing that's a real benefit in this faculty, in this university, is the relationship that the professors, the teachers have with their students. I very much have an open door policy. Whenever I'm available, unfortunately, I'm too busy too often, but students know that they can contact me. And they've got my mobile number, they've got, the WhatsApp, they come meet me, we'll go for a coffee together, and I'm happy to meet anytime. I meet evenings, I meet nights, I meet weekends with the students. And during working hours, and during your different rotations, when I was a student, I had a problem with biochemistry, because the UK system of teaching chemistry meant all you had to do was memorize. And I memorized my chemical equations, and I got to medical school, and I got to the first year fine because I memorized everything. My results weren't great in that subject. And the next year for biochemistry was quite a big subject. So I thought, you know what, I need to understand this properly. So I went to the head of biochemistry, then was Professor Matouche, and I said to him, listen, next semester, next year, I've got biochemistry coming up. I'm a bit worried because I can memorize it, but I really want to understand it. So every week, we had a regular meeting. We sat down, we had a coffee, we discussed biochemistry, he sent me chapters to read, to discuss, and to go through, and we discussed various other things. We became very good friends. He even came to my wedding. Many students have that sort of relationship with many of our teachers here. That doesn't exist in most other universities. It definitely does not exist in the UK, in most places. So it is, I'm not saying that everyone's like that, but different students will get different relationships with different teachers. And generally we are very open in that way. It's not easy. If it was easy, then we wouldn't have this high ranking. If you want someone to pass, just to give, to pay your money and to get a pass, there's plenty of countries you can go to who you can pay a lot less money than coming to us, and you can pay for your degree. That's not what you're going to get here. We are one of the top 1% of medical schools in the world. And there's a question about Semmelweis in Hungary. It's very good universities, historic, traditional universities. We are ranked higher. That's all I'm saying. And the opportunities we give you are second to none. I have to be competitive. We're better. Maybe I'm biased, but our rankings, our results show us to be true. So turn up for the exams, do your studies, have fun, but in proportion.
Professor Brisbane, thank you very much. Everything that you're saying and doing is very inspiring. Yotam, I'm very proud. We are very proud of you. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You're very
on
much.
a relatively short notice.
It's all good.
Both of you a very good weekend.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much also from my side. I haven't seen you for a while. And I must say, Yotam is an excellent student. He's a really excellent student. He does a lot of stuff, a lot of extra stuff as well. And so my best regards to you, and keep safe. I look forward to seeing you back in Prague soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our listeners. Have a good weekend. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moshe.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.